In this video, we're really going to focus on tips, tricks, and hacks to living here in Durango, Colorado and Southwest Colorado. And what we're going to do is we're going to break up this video into two sections. So we're really going to start with focusing on real estate in general. And what I mean by that is we're going to focus on several different subdivisions, jump around to a bunch of different subdivisions and talk about just little tips and tricks and things that you might want to know about these subdivisions that I've had clients mention, hey, I wish I really would have known that about this subdivision before moving here once they bought a home here. And they've told me those things. We're going to focus on just little things. I'll give you a quick example. There's a neighborhood recently we walked through, and the neighborhood just had so many trees all around it, and they didn't get a lot of sunlight into the windows of the specific home and most homes in this neighborhood. So that's just one tip right now that I'm going to give you, or tip and trick. And we're going to get into a lot more little items like that in a bunch of different subdivisions. And then from there, the second part of the video will be a lot more little hacks, if you will, things to make it easier in the winter, things to make it easier in the summer, things that you just might not know about our area compared to other areas like Texas, Oklahoma, even differences from Denver to here that might just really help you make it much easier in your process of moving here. And we're jumping into it right now. Now, by the way, if you're even thinking about moving out to Durango, Colorado, Southwest Colorado, or anywhere in this area, love to help you. I'm a licensed realtor here in Durango and Southwest Colorado. Love to help you with all of your real estate needs. More than happy to put the drone in the air, give you a property tour, area tour, give you a walkthrough with this camera of any properties you're looking at, as well as just hop on a call with you and just kind of go through your criteria, really help you dial in on what you might be looking for, point out some neighborhoods that you might not be aware of, and just kind of point you in the right direction and help you with your real estate journey in this area. Please reach out. Looking forward to connecting with you. Let's jump back into the video. Now, the first one is going to be talking to you a little bit about mountain biking. So I'm not just going to tell you that we've got a bunch of amazing trails, which we do. We'll throw up on the screen a map with all the trails throughout Durango. But what I'm going to specifically discuss right now is more the fact that, and just give you the example, that I had a client mentioning to me that he just got an e-bike, brand new e-bike. I think it was, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000. And he was really excited because the home that he was buying had trails right out the back door. It was actually in the Three Springs area east of downtown Durango, and he was really excited to take his e-bike out there. And unfortunately, I had to break the news to him that most trails in and around Durango, you can't ride certain e-bikes on. And we'll actually throw some of those rules up here on the screen right now. But just overall, and we'll throw up the website. That's probably a lot better thing to put up on the screen is the website, so you guys can look into that yourself. There are still a lot of good trails that you can take e-bikes on, but there are a good majority in town Durango that you really can't take e-bikes on. And keep in mind, the trail that I'm on right now, the Animas River Trail, you absolutely can have e-bikes on. And so wanted to start with that tip first, making sure that you're aware that there are a good handful that you can't have them on, and then jump into the fact that you can have e-bikes on the Animas River Trail. So the next tip, and just thing I want you guys to know, is something that a lot of people do that live in town Durango is they get an e-bike, and if you have kids, they'll get an e-bike where you have seats on it and even an area for groceries, and they'll take their bike onto the river trail and head over to the grocery store, the library, the park with their kids. They can do the grocery shopping there and then go back home. And so even if you live up in Hillcrest where you're climbing in elevation a little bit from downtown, you can still get up there with your e-bike. So looking into e-bikes, the other thing is recommended, but the other thing I was going to say is definitely worth either coming out here or wherever you live, just renting an e-bike for even a full day and maybe another couple days just to really get a good feel for it, really see what you like first, because they're a big investment. They can be a lot more expensive than a regular mountain bike. So keep that in mind. Definitely be aware as you're thinking about just either if you really like to live in town Durango, I think that's really going to help you out a lot, or just if you like to mountain bike and are thinking you want a little bit of that assistance with that e-bike, that should help you as well. Feel free to reach out to me as well if you have any questions about specific trails. If you're more intermediate, more advanced, more beginner, I'm happy to point you to specific trails that myself and my family really like and enjoy. And especially if you even have kids, happy to discuss trails where your kids will most likely like those trails a lot. I'll throw out a few right now actually. There's a really good trail in the Three Springs area where probably the most beginner trail over there. We'll put that actually up on the screen right now. The other one is of course the Animas River Trail, and this river trail is 8.9 miles going from Oxbow up north all the way to Home Depot down south. We'll put a picture of that trail up on the screen biking right now as well. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention about biking is I want to recommend you guys try out or purchase a fat tire bike. And fat tire biking is really awesome in the winter, used on the snow. We've also got some really good bike races if you're more competitive and want to race fat tire bikes out this way as well. All right, so let's start by kind of giving you an overview of Durango. So we've got in-town Durango, and when I say in-town Durango, that's really city limits. So you've got in-town Durango. South of Durango, you have the mesas, what we call the mesa, and it gets a lot more flat this way. You've got a lot more, the way I describe it to a lot of clients is it feels a little bit more like Arizona or New Mexico, as of course you're heading straight towards the New Mexico border. So a lot of my clients don't like the southern area quite as much because they don't feel like it's quite the same Colorado feel as they think of when they think of a mountain town. So keep that in mind. We'll of course show you footage as I'm talking about it so you can get a good feel for that south area. Some reasons I really do like the southern area is it gets less snow than most areas. It gets a similar amount of snow to in-town Durango, but there are not any real steep driveways compared to a lot of other areas. Then you're gonna get a lot more sun in the homes because there's not a ton of trees surrounding the homes like in some other forested areas. Another big plus to a part of the southern area of Durango is you've got the Animas River running right through the southern part all the way down through the border of New Mexico. And so there's some amazing properties, amazing homes, and amazing subdivisions right on the Animas River as well. Again, keep in mind, it's not like you have that kind of forested feel around the river, but you still have an amazing fishery, great fly fishing right there, and just an amazing river running right by your property if you consider living down in that area. Now, a con of this area, a negative of this southern area is a lot of homes and subdivisions are kind of right off of Highway 160, so you might hear some traffic from a lot of these homes. So again, another reason I always want to mention, reach out to me, give me a call, text, email, and I'm more than happy to either show you, give you a property tour, area tour of that area that you're considering, or send you a video that I've already shot and just give you a good understanding of an area that you're specifically looking at if you're not sure if it's too close to a busy street or not. Done that for a lot of my clients recently, and I think that really helps because there's some areas where you're still 5 acres away, you're still 800 yards away from the road, and you're really not going to hear it much, but it just depends. You know, it depends on the wind, depends on the tree coverage between the home and that property, just a lot of different reasons why it kind of depends. Now, another reason I really like this area is a lot of homes in this area, as you're kind of closer to the highway, you're really close to Three Springs. So they've got a pizza spot, they've got, you know, home slice pizza, they've got a good taco shop, Taco Boy. Then they also back up to some amazing mountain biking and hiking trails right there as well. So even though you're kind of out of the forest, you're really close to some great hiking and biking. Then let's go west of downtown Durango, west of in-town Durango. As you're going west of in-town, we'll actually start by putting up 2 videos that I shot all about the west area of Durango. So you guys can go look those up later if you're curious about this west area. What I love about this area is several of these neighborhoods are a lot more forested, and then several of these neighborhoods have a lot more acreage lots, like 1 to 3 acres. One of them, Durango Ridge Ranch, has 35+ acres and some very, very stunning views. There's a lot of homes in here that have absolutely exquisite views. There are some that just have bigger acreage, but still have that big open sky, and you still see the amazing stars at night. You see some amazing sunrises and sunsets over here. You're closer to Lake Nighthorse as well. All right, now from there, let's head over to north of downtown Durango. So this is called the Animas Valley, a very, very coveted area. As you're going into the Animas Valley, it's very different than any other part of Durango. So as you're going into this area, it's just very, very green and lush, a lot of cottonwood trees, not as many pine trees, but a lot of cottonwoods, some aspen trees in here, but just very flat overall. And you've got the Animas River running right through the middle of the Animas Valley. Now there's kind of cliff sides on both sides. So you have some homes looking into the valley. You have a lot of homes down on the bottom of the valley. So I had a client the other day, just to give kind of an example of this area, that said they didn't really like this area because it didn't kind of have those grand mountain views. So it's a little different in that it doesn't necessarily have grand mountain views, but it has these beautiful ridges on both sides of the valley. So you've got Missionary Ridge on one side, some really great hiking trails, and really great access to Purgatory Ski Resort, because as you continue up the valley, you're closer to Purgatory Ski Resort, of course. So just want to, again, touch on these areas, not go too much in depth. I've got a lot of videos on all of these different areas I'm talking about, so make sure to go through the YouTube channel, check those out later. Let's head over to the east area now, east area of downtown Durango. I would say this is probably the second most favorite, if not one of the favorite areas of a lot of my clients. A lot more forested, it just feels a lot more like that mountain one area that a lot of people really desire, especially moving away from, say, Texas, Oklahoma, California, these other states that don't have some of this type of environment that we have. So the negative of this area of just going east on Florida Road is a lot of homes are very tucked in the trees. It's kind of the way that I like to describe it. A lot of forested subdivisions, and with that comes potentially higher insurance costs, higher fire risk, and so you just want to be aware of that. It's always very case by case regarding insurance. I've been doing a lot more research on insurance, so let me know if you have questions on that. Happy to connect you with a great insurance agent as well. But these areas are really cool in that there's so many different diverse subdivisions. There's a subdivision that climbs in elevation, so you are kind of climbing up a road, but then it looks over the Animas Valley from this opposite side, from the east side of Durango. Then you've got a subdivision called Edgemont. There's Edgemont Ranch, Edgemont Highlands, Edgemont Meadows, 10 plus miles of trails. They've got a mile of the Florida River, private fishing access. Then they just have a really nice, nicely done, nicely developed subdivision as a whole. They've also got the Meadow Market, a little market with some amazing food. They'll have a game nights, just a really cool place to hang out as well. So I think that touches on all these different areas. You know, south, a lot more dry, a lot flatter. North, very, very green, closer to Purgatory. East, a lot more forested. West, a lot more forested as well, but a little bit different just depending on the area that you go to. So I hope that really kind of helps recap, give you an understanding of these areas around us. With that, I want to kind of give you a few quick hacks and a few pieces of information. So first of all, reach out if you're considering doing short-term rental on the property you purchase. I can send you a list of every single subdivision that you're allowed to do short-term rentals on. And I'll give you a few tidbits of information. There are quite a few subdivisions that don't allow it. I'm going to start by saying that. Also, in-town Durango does have a cap on the amount of short-term rentals they can have. There's a very long waiting list for in-town Durango. So it's going to be really tough to do that. And the permit does not transfer into your name if you buy a house that already has a short-term rental. So unfortunately, it's very tough to get a short-term rental in town Durango. There are a few condo associations such as Faringway, a few others as well that do allow it. And then once you get outside of in town, once you're in the county, the main thing that will restrict you from being able to get a short-term rental is going to be those HOA covenants, restrictions in those HOAs. So once you get outside of an HOA, it's really just county guidelines, a lot easier to have a short-term rental. So I want to give you the quick recap on short-term rentals and then give you a little bit more information about just a few subdivisions of things and questions that have been standing out to my clients that I've been getting questions from my clients on. So the first thing I'm going to mention is just snow. And we're going to go back and talk about weather a little bit later, but I'm going to start by saying you always want to be cognizant of steeper driveways and then roads in subdivisions that are steeper. Just really be aware of that. Even if it's in town Durango, it's still going to be trickier to get up those roads. As you get out of in town Durango, the elevation climbs as you go east and west. And then as you're about, let's call it 10 miles north of downtown Durango, the elevation climbs as well. So as the elevation climbs, you're going to get more snow, more ice. It's going to be trickier to get up those driveways. So that's that first tip regarding these areas. The next one is going to be there's quite a good handful of subdivisions that only allow you to have so much fencing. They want the deer, they want the wildlife to be able to walk behind these homes and not have all these subdivisions completely fenced in and make it tough for the deer. And just, they also want it just to be this community feel. So if you have a dog, if you have several dogs and really want a fenced yard, there's going to be a good handful of subdivisions you really need to watch out for, really need to be aware of. Again, reach out to me. I'm happy to give you a list of those and just show you some of those subdivisions. And what's interesting about that is there are going to be some subdivisions that do allow fences, and most homes in those subdivisions don't allow fences. So it's kind of tricky. Just reach out to me. Happy to provide you with some more info on that. Now, something else I really want you to know is there are a lot of subdivisions, a lot of homes in general that have so many different, very diverse amenities that they offer. So I'm going to give you an example. There is a subdivision about 12 minutes north of downtown Durango called The Ranch. They are really, really interesting in that they have 26 ponds throughout the subdivision, about 13 of which are stocked with rainbow trout. Then they have a 13 or 31 acre nature preserve behind the subdivision. Really amazing area with cottonwood trees throughout, trails that go throughout. It's got about 1.5 miles worth of trails. They've got the Hermosa Creek running through it that dumps into the Animas River. You have access to paddleboard that river, take the paddleboards from there down to Dalton Ranch. There's so many different really cool amenities like that that most realtors aren't aware of and don't put on the listing. So definitely reach out to me if you're curious about a specific property. More than happy to kind of cue you in on the specific specific things that it has going for it, such as water access, such as trails that back up to it, proximity to different things. Then on the other side of that, there are definitely plenty of subdivisions that have things that really aren't as desirable. So I'm gonna give you an example. I showed a property just the other day where it was just this pretty steep driveway, and they didn't even have that in the photos. They just had the home in the photos, and they kind of hid that steeper driveway. And so those are things that are really hard to tell, but are something that I'm very aware of because I know a lot about a lot of these different subdivisions. As you've seen, I'll let that lead into just telling you a little bit about the YouTube channel. If you haven't seen the YouTube channel before, make sure to check it out. I've got a lot of different videos on all of these different subdivisions where I tour the subdivisions in the west, I tour the subdivisions in the east, give you drone footage, give you driving footage so you can really get a feel of the neighborhoods, of the roads, of what these homes look like, of how people take care of their homes in these neighborhoods, and just give you a really good understanding of these neighborhoods as a whole. So definitely reach out if you're curious about specific properties, and also just check out the channel. I tell you all about these neighborhoods so that you can really have a good understanding of what these neighborhoods are like. Now, another piece of information about downtown Durango, just kind of living in the downtown Durango area, if you're really looking for a home with a decent sized garage, decent sized shop, just a good amount of space to park your cars, get them off the street, you're not gonna see that a whole lot. There's a lot of homes with where the cars are needing to be parked on the street, and maybe there's a one-car studio or one-car garage behind the house, kind of off of the alleyway. You'll see a lot of that. And then you'll just see a lot of older, more dated homes. We recently sold a home where the seller or the owner is gonna basically remodel the majority of the home. And so you're gonna see a lot of those types of homes as you get into downtown Durango, just a lot older homes. But the main thing I wanted to point out is just a lot more limited parking, smaller garages, if not no garage at all. Now let's talk HOAs for a little bit. There are a lot of HOAs throughout Durango, even the surrounding areas. There's gonna be a lot of HOAs. Now I would recommend that you don't let that sway you from looking at those neighborhoods, because a lot of those HOAs are just in place to kind of maintain, not kind of, to maintain the roads and to be able to plow the roads and maintain them in the spring and summer as well. Without needing that in there, a lot of these neighborhoods wouldn't have HOAs for the most part. So keep that in mind. Don't necessarily let that sway you from at least looking at those neighborhoods. There are several neighborhoods where they are really restrictive as well. I've definitely heard some stories where they can be a little bit frustrating. So if you don't want a neighborhood with an HOA, don't think that those neighborhoods don't plow the roads, don't take care of the roads. Usually there's just an agreement or just covenants where the owners are paying in, you know, $100 a winter, $300 a winter for the plowing of those roads. So really just want to discuss the plowing of those roads real quick. While I'm at that topic of plowing the roads, keep in mind that there are a lot of neighborhoods as you're getting east and west of Durango. I just want to recap. I know I mentioned this, but as you're really about 15 minutes from each direction, it does start to climb in elevation and you get quite a bit more snow. It's just kind of a generalization. Something I recommend to do is go on DurangoWeatherGuide.com. Check out his website. You'll have to scroll back quite far, but you'll be able to find where he actually shows the amount of snowfall that they've gotten in specific neighborhoods. And you can kind of compare and contrast the amount of snowfall they've gotten in those neighborhoods compared to in town Durango. Now, the next tip or trick or thing that I really want to discuss with you guys is the Animas Valley. I want to talk about traffic noise. I had a client call me, say they really don't want to be somewhere where they hear traffic noise or the train. Now, in the Animas Valley, you kind of have both of those. However, you have a ton of amazing luxury homes in the Animas Valley, and that doesn't stop a lot of people. So keep in mind that in the Animas Valley, it just really varies on the area that you're in specifically. So you might be in an area where you're really, really close to the road. Say you're 200 yards away from the road, but the subdivision kind of dips down, you know, in elevation by 10, 20 feet. And so that kind of breaks that noise. And so that's somewhere that we actually live. We live kind of below the highway a little bit, and so we don't really hear that noise a whole lot. So it really just varies, again, based on the home. There are, you know, $10 million homes in the Animas Valley, and they still have a little bit of that noise. They can hear a little bit of noise, but not a whole lot, not enough to where they don't want to consider buying that home. So just really varies based on the home, based on the location. You also have the train going right through the Animas Valley. It's not kind of that commercialized train sound. So what I find is a lot of my clients, as well as us, we really don't mind the sound because it's almost that nostalgic sound. It just doesn't sound like your typical train. So want to address that Animas Valley. While we're talking about kind of tips and tricks and that kind of thing, I want to hit on the west area, tell you a little bit about a few of those subdivisions. There's a subdivision called Twin Buttes. They are doing more sections of Twin Buttes right now as far as land, and you can still build in that subdivision. One kind of piece of information regarding building that I want to give you is that what I found lately is a lot of builders are making you sign something just saying that you're willing to pay over kind of what they quoted because building costs could change. I've been discussing that a lot with clients lately as well. To go back to Twin Buttes itself, this is a really cool subdivision, and I want to point this one out again I want to point this out because of things that is kind of hard to find online regarding amenities. What's really cool about this subdivision, they have pickleball courts, they have a pond, they have access to the Twin Buttes trail system, which is directly behind this subdivision. So a really cool feature of that subdivision, just backing right up to trails. So we're actually going to talk about apps right now on your phone that can be really, really helpful for you. So I'm going to read a list, a few different apps. CDOT, C-D-O-T, that's going to be Colorado Department of Transportation. So they have, I'm going to read a few of their features. They have apps to track road closures, snowplow routes, weather updates during the winter. So I've actually found this to be really helpful. I know there's a bunch of apps out there like this. I found this to be really helpful. The main reason why is, of course, road closures are really helpful, but you can also see the cameras on the highway and actually see for yourself what the weather conditions look like. If it looks icy on the road, if you see cars that are going really, really slow because of the weather conditions. And a place that you really want to be cautious of is Red Mountain Pass. That's the road closest to Ouray, just south of Ouray, because that is known as one of the most dangerous roads in the country because there are no guardrails in certain areas. The reason why is those snowplows have to be able to plow that road, and they don't want to be running into the guardrail because they can't see it because of the amount of snow on the road potentially. So I really recommend having that app on your phone. Several other apps I recommend are going to be Hiking Project or All Trails. They're both really good. I personally like Hiking Project a little bit better. What's nice about that is you can kind of see where you're at on the trail specifically. You can see the elevation, you can see how far you've gone on the trail, and you can just see all the trails around you. You can see the ratings of them, but this app is really, really nice. And let's look at a few other apps. So the next one is Nextdoor, nextdoor.com. That's a great app. You can kind of stay connected to the people in your neighborhood specifically and just in your area as well. It's really good for finding handyman, finding people to work on your property, finding somebody to clean up the leaves for you, just things like that can be really helpful. The other thing I recommend is Facebook Marketplace. So if you're going on there, you can either go on there to find something to buy, like maybe it's used sporting goods, used skis, things like that, or to sell stuff. I really like Facebook Marketplace as well, if you're not aware of that. The other one, My Radar, for real-time weather updates. Also really good for just avoiding those sudden storms. With that, I want to mention just a few kind of stories that I have. Just yesterday, we got a ton of rain. We got a big, huge thunderstorm come through, and something I'm maybe not as used to compared to where I've lived before. Like, we used to live in Hawaii, we used to live in Albuquerque area, used to live in Santa Fe, San Diego as well. And when we get thunderstorms here, you just really want to be careful. We heard a story a couple of years ago about somebody that was walking in their neighborhood, and their friend who was walking next to them got struck by lightning. And you just really want to be careful. Being up here in the mountains compared to somewhere else, you just have a lot more lightning and thunder right in town, right here. It's not away from you in the mountains, it's right here. So you really want to be careful and cognizant of that. There's a lot of accidents that happen with people back in the backcountry. There's also a lot of bear sightings, not a lot. There's some bear sightings, mountain lions. You just really want to be cognizant, careful of those things. I recommend just having bear spray if you're going for a hike. I'm a distance runner, and I've been going for runs every morning, and I see bear scat on the side of the road almost every single run that I go on. I've seen garbage cans tipped over, so you just really want to be careful and cognizant of that. I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but speaking of just safety and weather. All right, then the other apps that I want to mention are 14ers.com. If you really like hiking, that's a really, really good app / website for hiking 14ers. Next one is Peak Finder. So Peak Finder is really cool because as you're looking at homes, you can put your phone up to those peaks, looking out of the back deck or out of the windows. You can actually see which peaks are behind the home. Then the next app that I really like is Sunseeker. So the reason I want to bring this one up is I was showing a client a property yesterday, and he was asking me, where's the sun going to go? Is it going to be shining into my deck, into my eyes during the afternoon? What is that going to be like? And you can actually see where the sun is going across the sky in comparison to where you're standing. So that app is really helpful as well. Then if you fly fish, just going on to another another tip, just talking about outdoor enthusiast hacks. If you guys fly fish, I really want to recommend considering a boat like a Flycraft or at least something similar. Really easy to transport. We've got some great rivers to raft, such as the Animas River. Then we've got the San Juan River down south of us here. I also recommend taking out either Duranglers or San Juan anglers. If you really like fly fishing or you just want to get into fly fishing, take out one of their guides. Really recommend that. They have access to private water. They've got access to boats. They can take you out on one of these lakes as well. Then another thing, if you're a runner, if you're a distance runner, we've got some amazing trails. Again, I'm happy to talk more specifics off camera, hop on a call with you, just discuss what you're looking for, because I could talk about running all day. But if you're really looking for just some fast dirt roads where you're fairly flat, rolling hills, again, consider the Mesa south of downtown Durango. That area, the County Road 300s, County Road 301, 302, just south of Durango. If you want to climb some mountains, if you want to climb some steeper elevation, the Animas Valley has some great trails. You've got Halfland Creek. You've got some trails up further north as you're going towards Purgatory Ski Resort as well. Then my next tip is, if you're really not a winter person, if you don't love the winter and you're just really coming here for the summers, I would recommend, first of all, if you're just getting a vacation home and you're not even planning on staying for the winters, I'd recommend hang around for a couple snowfalls and consider getting some snowshoes. I think that's a really good way to kind of get into the winter, get into a winter sport that's not crazy downhill skiing or it's not snowboarding. But I really recommend trying to get some, or even just rent some snowshoes. Go snowshoeing. There's some great trails. Definitely talk to one of the shops, ask them about avalanche danger, make sure you're not going somewhere where you're worried about avalanches. But there are some really great trails, really great areas. They're just absolutely breathtaking, super beautiful, that you can go snowshoeing for an hour, 2 hours, just enjoy yourself. And so I really direct that towards you guys that aren't really considering or really want to enjoy the winter. Now, if you do want to enjoy the winter, there's stuff like heli skiing out here. There's some phenomenal backcountry skiing in Silverton that I really want to recommend you look into. And then there's some really great backcountry skiing towards Vallecito Lake, Vallecito area as well. That area of the National Forest is great as well. There's some great maps. Again, text me, email me. I can send you some maps that are really good that go over all the backcountry skiing areas as well. And then we've got some great areas for cross-country skiing. So in town Durango, Hillcrest Golf Course, and then going north right across from Purgatory Ski Resort is a Nordic Center there. And then over at Vallecito Reservoir, they have some groomed trails right there for cross-country skiing as well. All right, now let's continue talking about winter. I'm gonna look down at my notes. One thing I really recommend is having a couple decent jackets. And I'll give you some specifics. I really recommend having a good shell, a good Gore-Tex jacket, as well as having a good down jacket, but not something huge, something kind of a mid-layer down jacket. Maybe one with a hood, having a couple pairs of gloves. I just always have a pair of gloves in my down jacket. You just whip them out, you've got them. And then I always recommend just being prepared as well. In your car, I recommend having some water, having a sleeping bag, having some blankets, having some food, having some water, just being prepared for the winter in your car. You never know if you're gonna get stuck, even if it's 5 miles north of town. It does happen. We see people drive off the side of the road. So you just wanna be prepared as a whole. Also, we will throw up on the screen a video that we did all about the weather. I shot a really good video, in my opinion, comparing the weather from a lot of the mountain towns to Durango, Colorado. I talked about the winters, I talked about the summers, I talked about kind of how we don't have quite as long of a mud season as some of these other areas do, because they just get a lot more snow, a lot more runoff compared to us. And then just looking down at my notes, the other thing I recommend is also having a good pair of skiing pants, a good warm hat. I know these are kind of basics, but these are kind of the main ones. Although there are tons of different jackets you can get, the main two jackets I want to recommend is that shell and that down jacket if you're not used to this weather. The next thing, just talking about preparedness, I kind of went over that. The other thing I want to mention is a spot device. You can just hit a button on that and it alerts family or friends, or you can have it set up to alert search and rescue. So that's another device that I really recommend looking into getting as well. Next thing, I know this is kind of like, most people don't have this, but I recommend looking into it, is getting some heated windshield wipers. I've had times where I was driving up to Purgatory Ski Resort where it was really stormy and it was just icing over my windshield wipers. So I recommend looking into those as well, and just being really cognizant, being really careful careful in the winter. We always have accidents that we hear about, and a lot of these are preventable. There are some great classes that you can take on avalanche safety, on just being aware of avalanche danger as well. So just look into some of that. Definitely call one of the shops here. Backcountry Experience is a really good shop. You could call, ask them about some of these things as well. They're gonna be a wealth of knowledge for just being prepared, getting the right gear, things like that as well. You could reach out to them about great camping spots as well. All right, now a few more resources I wanna give you is I wanna recommend one more app. It's called Onyx. Onyx Backcountry, they have Onyx Off-Road, they have a few different ones, but Onyx Backcountry is what I'd recommend. Then the other app is gonna be Fat Map, and that's for skiing and snowboarding insights. Then the other thing I wanna do is throw up on the screen several of our pros and cons videos of living in Durango as well as Bayfield, and check out some of those videos. Those are gonna go into much more detail. I'm gonna talk a lot more specifics on some of these cons, and we will recap in some of these videos what we discussed today as well. Now guys, if you're even thinking about moving to Durango, reach out, give me a call, text, email. I'm a licensed realtor here in Durango and Southwest Colorado. Love to help you with all of your real estate needs. Looking forward to connecting with you guys and helping you out. Also, more than happy to put the drone in the air, give you a drone tour of any areas, any homes as well as hop on a call with you and just kind of help dial in your criteria, dial in what you're looking for, and really get you ready to come out and take a look at some properties so that you don't waste any time when you're out here. Looking forward to connecting with you guys. We'll see you soon.